Nicky Henderson has had more Cheltenham Festival winners than any other trainer, and ahead of this year's meeting we paid a visit to his Lambourne base to find out about the horses heading to Prestbury Park. Kicking off with Lammy Surge, who runs in the Skybet Supreme Novices.
He's a nice one to sort of kick off the meeting with, and it would be even nicer if Ferry could leave Willie Mullins' horse in Ireland, and because we keep hearing frightening things about it. But there you go, that's what it's all about, and reputations are there to be sort of, or rumours or whatever it is. No, I mean, I think he compares as well as I've seen anything that we've had for that race before. He's a lovely big horse, he's scopy, and he's got everything, he's got all the right credentials anyway. And his prep's gone well, and be a nice way to start.
And he won at Sandown on pretty testing ground. Do you think he needs it testing, or will he go on anything?
I don't think he needs it. I think he'd cope with anything. He's by King's Theatre, although he came from France. It's a slightly odd part about him, but most of those King's Theatres want good ground, and I can't see why he wouldn't. He's a classy horse, and he's got the experience. He's been very good all the way through, so if we can put that all together, he'll take a bit of beating, but they're all beatable.
The Albert Bartlett, you've got a few engaged in that. Who's likely to take up their entrance?
All three, I would think, is the plan, and no reason not to, because I think they're all realistic. And having got to this stage, they've really got to run. There's Karachi Apache's 3 out of 3 so far, and where else does he's won over 3 miles. There's no doubt about the trip. Then out Sam, again, I think the further he'll go, the better he'll be. He's unbeaten, and again, he deserves a crack at it. He's come from the Irish point-to-point field, you know, and he's a good, solid person. And Vita de Rock, again, he's had a fantastic season. I mean, he just got beaten in the Challow. You know, that's grade 1 form. That usually stands you in pretty good stead. He stays, soft ground. He's got caught on the back foot a couple of times, once when coming down the hill at Cheltenham, and he's off the bridle. We're all keen that 3 miles will help him through that. And no, I think they've all got good chances, and I say, luckily for us, we're the only people that don't have to decide which is the best of the three, because they're all, you know, they're there to take their chance, they're there to do the best, obviously. And they're realistic.
We've also got an enviable hand in the Triumph Hurdle. 3 very well fancied contenders. Start off with the shortest priced of them, Peace and Co. He seems to have done everything right so far.
He's probably been, I think it actually goes back to the day at Doncaster when he won there. Everybody was, he actually got to say everybody, even I was fairly gobsmacked what we saw that day. It was frightening. But it just hadn't got the sort of, it was very easy to doing what he was doing. We just need to try and transfer that into other, he wasn't doing it the right way for this race. That was only the second run of his life. And Barry just needed to try and educate him a bit at Cheltenham. And okay, he didn't win as easily as he had done the first time, but obviously these were better horses anyway. And secondly, as I say, we'd ridden him rather in an exaggerated way in a very slowly run race. And it's done him a lot of good. He's been much more relaxed about his work and everything since then, and I think it's done him good.
Do you think a bigger field, stronger pace might suit him better?
Listen, we're not going to stop him doing what he does naturally if they don't go any gallop. I mean, yeah, he could go and make the running, but I'd prefer not to, and that's why we didn't do it at Cheltenham in January. We didn't let him bowl along or do that, because otherwise you were really committing him to making the running for the rest of his life. If you don't teach him to do it now, or to drop in now, then he was never going to. And they just on the day, they went so slowly that we didn't actually pick the right race to do it in, but whichever race we were going for, I know it's the only race to run him in anyway. He had to just go and learn to do that, and I think it'll, you know, say that was for the future. Now now this is where life begins.
And he's worn earplugs before. Would he wear them at the festival?
Oh, he certainly will, yeah. Most definitely, because the first day he ran, actually Darryl said there was a couple of, he said there was a fair bit of noise going on anyway. He said actually there was a horse beside Darryl Jacob rode him at Doncaster. because we were at Cheltenham that day, and he said actually there was a horse making a noise, i.e. its breathing was making noise. He said actually that was just revving him up the whole way, and he needed to switch him off, and he couldn't, because his bloody noise was coming with him. And so we decided the best way to do was eliminate that noise and put earplugs in him. And it works with a lot of horses, and you can put a hood on them as well. We'll see what we wear in the time, but something, you'll have something on, yeah.
And moving on to Top Notch, originally sort of backup for Peace & Co for the Triumph, but he's earned his place in the race with some good performances.
Yeah, hopefully he'll run anyway. I mean, yes, he was sitting in the wings in case anything went wrong, but then he was very impressive in the Victor Ludorum, and you'd have to say, well, he's got to go anyway, so he's going to take his chance. And why not? Simon's got an embarrassment, he's very, it's been a great run in with some young horses that he's got here and elsewhere, and why not? One's never enough. Run them all.
In Hargam?
Yeah, very good. I mean, he's a real professional. He did nothing wrong. He's been round Cheltenham twice. He's been there in soft ground, but AP felt that good ground might help him, so we took him up to Musselburgh, which was, I think, was a good shout actually, because it's given us an easier run in to wait for the Adonis. And as it happened, the Adonis was run on some pretty socky ground on Saturday, whereas we got him onto some good ground at Musselburgh, so that worked very well for us. And he was very impressive. I thought he beat some, they weren't mugs, but he was very clinical, very clean and professional. And as I say, he's been around Cheltenham, he gets the trip. He'd love some good ground. We'll hope it is.
And around the yard, is opinion split as to which of the three is the best of them?
No, not really. I was trying to take a sort of straw poll of the press this morning to see what they thought, but no, one could do that, but I expect we'd all get it wrong. So we're lucky. We're probably the only people that really don't need to know what might happen. Even if they were going to finish 5th, 6th or 7th, which order would they finish in? Nobody knows. We don't intend. I mean, it's not as simple as going and having a gallop at home and saying that A is better than B, that's better than C. That isn't possible. You wouldn't be able to find that out at home. I don't want to. They've just got to go there and do their best, and let's hope one of them can win.
Vaneteur, will he run in the Champion?
That's the plan, and I'm sort of quietly looking forward to it, to be honest with you. I think he's really well at the moment. His work's been very, very good. He's going to go to Kempton tomorrow, and if that went well, I think that'll go well, but just the ground would be the thing. I wouldn't. He's up to this sort of standard. I know he hasn't won this year, but there have been 3 very good runs. And given good ground, I still think he's knocking on the door. And if he's not, I'll be very disappointed if he isn't there next year for the Arkle.
And looking at the World Hurdle, Whisper and Blue Fashion on course for that?
Yeah, I think we've decided that sadly to beat that looked at the beginning of the season if he'd be the obvious one, but we've sort of rather admitted over the weekend that we're not going to do that and we'll leave him for next year. Whisper, again, everything looked honky-dory at the end of last season. Especially when 3-mile race at Aintree, where that was a great performance, but I don't know whether that was all a bit much for him. It was on the day, to be fair. He got in a terrible state before the race. He's going to Kempton tomorrow. If that goes well, then yes, he will run. Otherwise, we'll put him by for chasing next year. Blue Fashion, he has got some form that definitely suggests this horse is well capable of this. If you go back to a hurdle race at Haydock last year when he actually gave more of that £5 and then he got beaten a length or so. So that puts him well in to the, it makes him well good enough for the race anyway. And he's good fresh. He was second to Faheen at Ascot first time out this year. Hasn't run since, but that's been intentional. So he's entitled to be there. He could be interesting.
It looks a wide open race this year, the World Hurdle.
I think it's sort of gone that way a little bit. Yes, you've 1 or 2 have dropped out of it, and 1 or 2 haven't quite lived up to it. Rather like Beat That, who might have been one of the obvious ones at the beginning of the season. It is wide open. I think a lot of these races are wide open this year. There are, there's no. There are a lot of maybe short price favourites, but they're still they're all going to be vulnerable. Nobody's going to be sitting on anything categorically thinking they're on bankers, because there aren't any. I don't think. I think if you go back 2 years, sure, Sprinter Sacre really, to all intents and purposes, was that. We all had to sort of just pray rather than, you'd never be confident. But there are no bankers. I don't think this year. I think a lot of it's very open. There's a lot of very good horses in all the categories, and some stars will come out of it. There's no doubt about that.
So they are the hurdlers heading to Cheltenham. Nicky was reluctant to pick between them, but I have to say, of the horses I saw, Peace & Co was the absolute standout for the Triumph Hurdle.